guys, another day, another project. This wasn't one I was anticipating doing. I was in the midst of doing some trimming around the yard. We have, a couple acres we like to keep trim, and so we're using a still weed eater. It's one of the traditional kind of weed whip style. And like if you have any experience with any of these, you know how quickly you constantly are burning through that string. At the beginning of the season, I was so fed up with replacing string that I actually went with one of the Polycut 28-2 cutter heads. It's kind of a polymer based blade, dual blade setup. And anyways, so I ran that for the first half of this season, and although it cuts pretty well, pretty clean, I felt like I was replacing those blades just as frequently as I was the spool of wire. So I've got a little different approach I'm going to try today, and I'll take you guys along for the ride. So I've already got the trimmer head off of my weed whacker. This is the Still FS55R. It's something I had actually got out of the salvage a little while ago and kind of fixed up, and I've been using a lot. This is the traditional head that comes on at the string attachment. This is what I kind of upgraded to at the beginning of the season, thinking that this was going to solve all my problems. It obviously didn't. And it's not that I'm reviewing this, but I do want to point out some of the things that I noticed is that, one, the blades aren't as cheap as what the wire is, obviously, but also that I wore through them as quick as I did. And then the other thing is that, like, if you'd hit a big stick or something, these would actually get folded down underneath here. I always had to carry around a flat blade with me just to get it, like, pried out so I could keep on going. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reuse this part, though. It's not like I can return it, but I wanted to try something with it. When you take this apart, you have to put a screwdriver in here. You just push it through. That locks into kind of these ribs of this plate and holds the spline in place on the end of the weed whacker. And then you can unscrew this. It's reverse threaded, so you'll do lefty tighty, righty loosey. But so I'm going to take this guy off, as I've done, and I'm not going to use these blades anymore. But what I had noticed is that this actually has a string, like a wire hole for it, so it looks like you could feed something through there. I assume it's probably meant to kind of like loop over that and then kind of feed down through it, kind of making kind of a serpentine through there. What I wanted to do, though, and this is why I say I can't recommend that you do this, but I'm going to give it a try either way. I've got some of the zip line wire. It's fairly thick. It's not, what is it? It's it's about 3/16 overall outside of the jacket. And what I want to do is kind of feed this through and just leave myself a wire on there that I can clip the ends of it so that it's the right diameter. But I want to try something like that. First thing I notice is that it's got these little eyelets that are a smaller diameter than what I need. And so I'm just going to actually knock these guys out. They're kind of just press fit. Just line it up on the edge of that and knock them out. And with that out, I've got this big opening here for this wire to go through. When it's assembled, this has got a corresponding groove that'll keep the wire, pretty close in place. It's not going to allow it to slam around too vertically. But now what I'm going to do is just feed this through. You have to put a slight bend in it just because of the geometry of this part. I'm going to give myself a little bit of length, like I said, because I'm going to cut it short. And I've got some of these cable locks, one of these type of deals. If I put something like this on there, it's not going to pull through in either direction. So as long as it's somewhere in the center, I'm sure it'll find its own kind of natural balance as it's spinning around. But it's just a single wire, and my hope is that because this is braided wire, since it's braided wire, it's not going to be needing to get replaced as frequently as these plastic ones. Another comment on that is that I had thought about using some of the like swage, the the crimped style cable clamp kind of things. But I thought, if I ever do need to replace it, that might turn out to be a little bit of a pain. Since the weight of this clamp portion is right in the center of the wire, or it will be once it's actually rotating. I'm not too worried about it like throwing some out of balance or anything like that. I'm sure that'll be fine, and then we'll just clip it somewhat temporarily now until we get a better sense for how long it actually needs to be. So now just putting it together, so I've got this guy kind of put together like this. It's all right that slides around. Just line it up with the original cutter head. Now I've got the spline locking plate. So that goes on first. Like I said, this is reverse threaded, so if I'm looking at it from the opposite side, you'd be turning this to the left to get it to tighten up on these threads. And I guess one thing I would recommend is that if you're going to try this, not that I recommend you do this, but one thing I would say is that you probably should have some kind of guard on there in case any of these wires, sometimes they're braided and the braid, the particular element will be less than the whole length and it might shoot out an element, kind of like a grinding disc or something. I've got a little like cutter thing on here if it was a trim or a wire, like a plastic wire. I'm just going to cut it at that same length. I'm sure it'll knock around a little bit on the first go, but it should kind of self-trim. There you have it. Give it a try. Hey guys, there you have it, another one in the books. This project took about 20 minutes, and luckily I had all the parts on hand that I could just do this upgrade on my own. I'm sure others have other videos probably detailing it in better steps and whatnot, but I just want to show you that if you're like me, you probably have junk laying around that you can fix a lot of your problems already. And to be honest, if you're watching this channel, you're probably one of those guys as well. So anyways, keep this one under your hat just in case you need to do it in the future. Like I said, I can't recommend it, but it's a good option for me. Anyways, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.